Hi everyone, my name is Ehsan, and in this video I'm going to show you how to work on the results and discussion section of your paper. If you go to the list of video that I have created so far, this is video number 10. This section is very important because I think the editor decides whether to accept or reject your paper. So you have to put too much effort on this and try to make the best out of all the findings, results that you have, the trends, and make everything look professional. So yeah, in this video I'm going to show you how to make that possible. Before diving into the results and discussion, you might have this question: what is this part? What is result and discussion? Basically, this part is your story. You tell the data, you say, I found this is the observation that I had, this is the finding, but that's just the results part, right? Then you have to discuss and say how this is related to what you have found, what other peoples have found so far, and try to find the trends and explain it and say how this is going to advance in your field. So basically this is the definition of the results and discussion. And some journals have these two parts distinct, so they have a results section and a discussion, but there are some journals that they don't care. You present the results and explain, and the discussion are like into each other, so there is no distinct separation between them. If you go back to the examples that I showed you before, I outlined for myself for the results and discussion 6 different subcategories, right? So this is going to help me to not over explain or forget what I'm going to present. So this is going to help you. I would say if you have some objectives for your project, you need to have 1 bullet point for each and have the results and discussion into that section. So this is going to help you to organize what you want to present, all the findings that you have and the trends and everything that you have found. Now we are going to dive into the result section. For the results, here you are going to show your findings, right? So whatever you have found and you explain them, you don't discuss anything. You just say, this is the results we found. And if you had any issue with the data collection, you can also explain that. Or if you found any trends that is, worth publishing or worth mentioning, you can also do that. And this is where the main figures and tables can be. In the future slides, I'm going to show you how to make your figures and tables look professional. And then in your discussion section, it's where you make meaning out of your results. You will review the main results that you have. You are going to compare what you have found with other papers that are out there already. And you are going to propose the reasoning, right? So you are going to say, if I see this, what's the reason behind it? And you are going to discuss how the findings and the data you have presented here is going to advance in your field. And you can also suggest some future direction and say, we are going to do this, what's the application of what you have found, and you are going to present that. But here you have to avoid saying something that you cannot support with your data. In science, we can't do that. We can't say, I think this is going to happen without any data to back that up. So keep that in mind. Now, if we go to the research paper structure that we had, the main findings and whatever you have, it's going to be in the results and discussion section. But you don't have to put all the tables and figures in that section, because many journals, they have some limitation in terms of the pages that you can have. So if you have 15 figures and 12 tables, you don't have to put all of them into the results and discussion section. Just put the best, the things that you want to discuss, the things that make sense, and it relates to your story, right? And the remaining goes to the supporting information, or SI for short. And you can still refer to them even if it's in the supplementary information, by saying in the main context of your paper, saying as shown in figure S12, which means the figure number 12, which is in the SI. So that S stands for the SI. And here I'm showing you each category might have its own subcategory. So here I have shown that the results and discussion has 6 parts, and the part number 2 has 7 subparts. So you can do that. This is going to really help you to organize your discussion and have a nice outline. And if we go to that imaginary example, the bicolored apple, you can see the results and discussion has 6 sections, and each of them is one objective. Now in the next few slides, I'm going to show you different types of visuals that you can use in your paper. You might already know what figure and table mean, but I'm going to explain them all so it makes sense for everyone. The 4 different types of visuals we can have are graphics, schemes, tables and charts, and figures. Now I'm going to explain them one by one. What are graphics? Graphics are colorful, creative visuals that explain a concept or show a process. I think of it as a mini poster, right? It's like the combination of drawing, arrows, symbols that makes science look fun and easy to understand. I'm showing you a few examples here. Schemes are simply the step-by-step reaction maps. They show chemical changes and reactions, and they usually pointing from one structure to another, and we as chemists, we love them because we are showing the gist of a paper, and if we haven't had those, we had to read the entire paper. So we mostly use it for showing a chemical reaction. What are tables and charts? Tables are like grids of information, while charts include plots, graphs, and patterns that show a trend. And finally, what is figure? Figures are pictures that show results. They can be graphs, microscope images, 3D models, and anything that presents experimental findings. These are actually the proof and the evidence part of your paper. Now that we know all of these visuals, I'm going to show you how to present them so it looks professional. But there is a disclaimer here. Doing these, it's not going to lead to an acceptance, and not doing them, it's not going to lead to rejection. This is going to just look professional if you apply them, right? So have that in mind. The first thing that you need to know is to have a golden rectangle ratio, which is 1 to 1.6. If you want to present a figure or a scheme, it's better to keep it in this ratio. And how do you know you can keep it in this ratio? I'm going to show you an image. Just imagine you want to have this image in your paper and you want to make sure this is 1 to 1.6. All you need to do, bring it to a Photoshop, or if you don't have it, you can use a PowerPoint and go to the insert shapes and have a rectangle. And then here you can see this is 1 to 1. So just change one of them to 1.6, hit enter, and then hold the shift and go to a corner and then just make it bigger, right? So it's gonna cover all your image, but you don't know where the image is, right? So yeah, what you can do, you do a right click, then you go to the format shape, and then from here you go to the transparency and just reduce it a little bit so you can see the picture behind it. So this way it's gonna show you if your image is in a 1 to 1.6 ratio. You don't need to be OCD with this, just roughly have that ratio in mind so your image looks good. And another tip is that if you want to change the size of the image, you have to do it from both sides. How do we do that? As you saw a few minutes ago in the PowerPoint, I hold the shift and I did it from one corner. So what it does is the height and the width becomes smaller or larger in a proper way. But if you do it only on one side, as you can see in these two images, the image becomes a little bit ugly, the words are unusually, longer or smaller, and it's just ugly. Don't do that. Just do it from both sides. Another tip is that if you want to show a trend, it's better to show it in a figure instead of a table. In that imaginary examples that we had for the apple, I have shown here 5 different experiments that we have done with a salt concentration versus vitamin D. And here it's really difficult to see the trend, right? But if I change that to a figure, it's very obvious that this example, this second trial, it's going to show me that it has increased the vitamin D as I increase the salt concentration. So it's really hard to see it in the table, but in figure it's much easier. Another tip is when you make your figures, tables, and all the visuals you have, make the captions and legends self-explanatory. Why? Because that way, when readers read your paper, they can understand it just by looking at the caption. They don't have to go to the context of your paper and read it and find what you explained there. You might say, I'm double explaining. Whatever I just explained in the context, I have to explain it again here in a short manner, but that's fine because people want to read the caption and understand what you are showing in this figure or this table. Another tip is that make your figure less crowded. So here on the left, you can see it's very crowded. I can't figure out what you are trying to show me, but on the right side is a very simple and easy to understand figure that shows me what you are trying to tell me. Another tip is that if you have 2 or more figures, it's better to use the same scale so you can compare them better. Here I'm showing you an example. On the left side, you see, let me zoom in, vitamin D and vitamin C are using the different scales. So here the scale is up to 120 and here is up to 80, and now it's an illusion that vitamin C in this experiment is better than this one. It's higher than this experiment. But if you use the same scale, if I go here, now they both have the 120 scale, and you can see the vitamin C in this experiment is almost the same as this one. So you can do a better judgment in the trends if you use the same scale. Next tip is to choose the right chart type for your data. Here I'm showing a chart, a bar chart, which has 5 different experiments showing you what's the difference between the vitamin D in different concentration salts. If I change that to a pie chart, it doesn't make any sense. So you choose the right type of charts that you want to present your data. Another tip is you have to have your figures, tables, and all those visuals mentioned in the text that you're explaining, and right after that you have to present it. Let me show you one example, the results and discussion section. So here there is a results and discussion, and then they have mentioned the scheme 2A and then a scheme 2B, and right after that they have presented the scheme that they have. So 2 points here. One is right after mentioning them, show your results, show the charts that you have, and then don't forget to mention it in the context. So sometimes you forget to put the parentheses and say this sentence once it's finished, then look at this scheme. So don't forget to mention the figures, tables, and the schemes that you want to show. Next, make your figures simple and easy to understand. Here I'm showing you an example. On the left, it's very crowded, you don't know where to look at, and my eyes goes everywhere. But on the right, I can look at on the top and know, okay, I have to start from this TLR and then go down and then from left to right and then finally look at this. So there is a flow here. On the left, there is no flow. I'm looking at everywhere. But on the right, I can track my eyes and there is a flow here. I will discuss this a little bit more in the future slides. Now, another example about being simple is if you want to show a map, then it's better to just focus on what you want to present. On the left, it's crowded, it's like showing everything, but on the right, I'm just showing you what I mean, going from one point to another point. So make everything simple, easy to understand. Now I'm going to show you different figure compositions that you can present your figures in your research paper so it looks good and it's easy to track with your eyes. In the first way, you can put your figures side by side so it's going to be easy to look at from the left to right or right to left. The second one is you stack your figures. So either they are going to look from the top to bottom or bottom to the top, and it looks easy to look at the data. The next one is you put it in a circular manner, and I couldn't find a figure in any papers that I was researching to make these slides. So just you can imagine what I mean here. The next one is when you have a scheme, usually the chemistry people use this a lot. You can use it in a snake manner if you have a chart, a reaction in this case, but you can have a flow chart in a snake shape so it looks easy to follow your flow chart or chemical reaction that you are presenting. And here I'm showing you another example. You start from here, go all the way to here. The next one is when you have a V-shape presentation. You have one figure and it goes to 2, 3 or more, so you have like a V shape in one side. The next one is you have the same V shape but it's from the top to bottom. So here I'm showing you one example. There is one figure and goes to 3 different ones, so it might be even more. But when you look at this type of figure compositions that I have discussed here, you can see there is an eye track. It's easy to know where to start and when to finish. Instead of just throwing all the figures that you have and people don't know where to look at. And here I'm showing you another V-shape example, and you can see here is one figure on the top and 4 at the bottom, and then another V-shape. So you see there is a chart and then 2 figures below it. The next tip that I want to discuss here is to have a contrast in your figures that you want to present. Here on the left, they all have shown in black, but on the right, you can see they are different shape and also alternating between white and black. This is going to help you to see all these individual points, even if the image becomes very small. But on the left, if they all have the similar color, it's very difficult to distinguish between a circular or a hexagonal, shape. So just keep that in mind. Have different shapes and also alternate between the colors. If they want to print it in white and black, it's much easier to see it, right? The next tip is that your equations also should have a number. It's not just the figures that should have a number. Equations here, I'm showing you a few examples that they have numbers, and it's easier to reference when you are discussing them. Another tip is that to not use 3D effect if you are showing a figure and you don't want to make a point by showing that in 3D. So here I'm showing a chart here. You can see the trend is here, but these two, even though they are in 3D, they don't make a point on something by being in 3D. So don't show them in 3D if you don't have to. So I'm done with how to present the figures and the schemes and graphics, but here I want to show you how to make high quality tables. On the slides on the left, you can see I have 3 tables, and each of these tables are related to that imaginary examples that we had, the vitamin D, vitamin C, and vitamin E in 25 degrees C, and different salt concentration. I have measured it in 5 different experiments, right? So now I want to change that and make a high quality table like what you see on the right. So there are 20 steps that every time that you have a table and you want to make it look professional, you have to follow them. So I'm going to show you step by step how to go from these 3 tables to this table on the right. And the next time that you want to do that, it's just easy to follow that. First, use figures to deliver a message. If you want to discuss a trend, it's better to use a figure because it's much easier to see than a table. That's step number 1. Step 2, merge the table whenever it's possible. So here I'm showing you 5 different trials that I have done, and the same salt concentration, different vitamins, but the same temperature. So merge the table and make it in one if you can. Next, remove the colors. So here, the colors on the left, it might make sense for you. Maybe each person has done one experiment and they have color coded them, but in reality, when you want to publish it, we don't care who did this experiment. So you just remove the colors. Then the next step is to remove the grid lines. So here you can see there are grid lines, and here on the right there is no grid line. Next, remove the fill. Here on the left there is a filling of gray. Now on the right there is no filling. Next, remove the border. As you can see here, I have removed the border on the right. Next, remove any bolding or italic text that you have. So be very careful when you are using that. You have to make a point. If you want to make a point, okay, it's okay to use that. But in this case, let's just remove any bold or italic text that we have. So I did that, and on the right you can see there is no more bolding or italic text. Next, use the same font. So on the right, you can see this vitamin D has a different font than the rest of the table. So I changed that to have the same font. Next, left alignment the text. So if you have any text, you can do a left alignment. So here, vitamin D, I have done the left alignment to all of them. Any number, you have to do a right alignment. So for these columns that have number, I'm going to do a right alignment. So I did that. Next, the title and for that data should be corresponding to whatever you are presenting. So here, let's say I had vitamin D. If I had something on the top, I had to do a left alignment because the text here is left alignment already. And for these digits, because I just did a right alignment, the trials on the top, any text that are on the top should also be the right alignment. So I did that. You see here it looks a little bit better than what we had before. Next, you have to resize the columns to the data that you are showing. Here, the vitamin D, the D is below that. So I'm going to increase the size of this column and probably this salt concentration with this percentage. So it looks a little bit better on the right. Next, remove any repetition and make a clear caption. So here I have repeated vitamin D 6 times, or vitamin D or E the same, or the salt concentration has repeated 3 times, the experiment numbers and the temperature has been the same for all of them, so 25 for all of them. Why do I have to do that? So let's put that 25 degrees C in the caption of the experiment of this table, and then remove that column and also make the vitamin D, C and E just repeat it once, and the same for the salt concentration and this trial. So this even up to now looks way better than what we have here on the left. Next, put some white space. So here on the left, you see there is no white space between these two different vitamins, and then on the right I just put one more row here, so it makes it clear that I can see these are related to vitamin D, these are vitamin C, and this is vitamin E. Next, use a consistent precision for your data. Here on the left, you can see some of these are 2 digits after the point, but some of them are 5 or 3 or 4. So make it consistent. If you want to report them all in 2 digits after the point, then just do that. Next, round your number. So here in this experiment, let's just imagine I can round it up to 1 digit after the point. So I can do that by making this much easier to look and see how the data is changing. And the next step is to round even more. So here you can see for this salt concentration, I have reported up to 4 digits after the point, right? But I can change that to these numbers, and just for the salt concentration in the caption, I can put times 10 to the minus 4, so people know that these number they have to multiply by this so to get the actual concentration. But this data 3, 6, 9, it's much easier to read instead of like having them up to 4 digits after the point. So let's just keep things very simple and put the explanation into the caption, and the data looks way better to see. Next, don't use the default font that the Excel file has. You can change it to whatever you are presenting in your paper, but just don't use that default font. It means you haven't done anything, you just did a simple copy paste. So change it to something that you are presenting your research paper with, so it's consistent. Next is that if you want to emphasize on a particular trend or a data, you can add that back by coloring or making that bold or make it italic, so they know they have to look at that trend or whatever you are presenting. So you can add that emphasize back, but be careful to not use too many colors and just make all the data look important, but in reality you just wanted to show the most important trend or the most important data that you are presenting. Alright, we are done. I'm showing you all these 20 steps on how to go from this not looking professional tables all the way to how to make a professional table. Again, if you are submitting your paper to a specific journal, you can look at the guidelines that they have put on their website, and if they said in the results and discussion section you have to have such and such figures or tables, the sizing, you can look at those information on the website of the journal that you are submitting your paper to. In the next video, I'm going to explain the methodology and the supplementary information section of a paper. See you in the next video.